You're doing fine this day. A bit rainy here in North Texas, but that's what we've been dealing with. So today we are going to cover basically what I've returned, learning what you need from Dynamics 365. And we're going to cover kind of a lot of education type stuff, just some things I've picked up over the years. And if anything pops up, you got a question is, Cheryl says it's lovely there in the UK. I hope it is. Okay, so let's get into this. So my name is Mitch Milam. You can reach me by one of the following methods here. All of my webinars and other things are recorded and put up on my YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, and then there's a little bell thing beside the subscribe button that will actually send you a notification anytime I upload everything. So I put these webinars up there along with just other topics I come up with. I have a thing called Mitch's Minute that is just me showing you how to do something, and that just goes straight up there. So just one of those things. So anyway, let's get into it. So a couple things. I don't know if you got my email, if you're on my mailing list or not, but through the end of April, I've given everyone 50% off of my two courses, my JavaScript development course and my model-driven app course. So you have to use the code in this together when you check out, and that will give you the discount. But it's at learn.xrmcoaches.com. So if you're interested in either one of those, go ahead and check it out. And don't forget to, again, use this code. It'll be good through the end of April. So getting started here. So this is one of my favorite quotes of all time from Albert Einstein. It's basically the fact that if you spend 15 minutes a day studying a topic, then in a year you can become a genius at it or an expert at it. So that's the rule people are using, okay? Now, again, that's going to depend on the topic, of course, got to say that. But to be quite honest, I mean, most of us who are on this call, has there not been a day that you haven't gone to work and learned something new? For me, that has not happened in, I couldn't tell you, 30 years or more. I have to learn something every day just to keep up, okay, to either help me do something or just to keep apprised of what's going on in the world with Dynamics and other technologies. So I've kind of broken down the Dynamics universe into 6 buckets. There is no linear progression of any of these. It's just the way that they drew it out. And we'll go through each of these, but the main idea here is you start off with to be an end user, and you can end up being an architect if that is your path. It does not have to be your path. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of these, and again, this is my my interpretation, and as anything that we talk about, your journey is going to be slightly different. So don't picture these as set in stone. So the way I view an end user is, you know the product, you know how to accomplish a task, which is mostly your job, and then sometimes you learn to accomplish other people's tasks or jobs as well. But basically, you just use a system. So maybe you are selling real estate or selling insurance, and this is how you keep track of your customers and clients and what you're doing with them and your deals you have going, etc. The next layer up is a power user. So it builds on the end user skills. You know and understand the advanced features. You help others. That's the start of this process. You understand the business and its processes, and you can start to help creating automation, whether it be workflows or Power Automate or whatever it might be, business process flows. But you're at a higher level because mostly you have the time and experience with the product to be able to help other people and to help drive the business. An administrator builds on these other kind of layers and performs the day-to-day administration and works with everyone else to find solutions to problems, including problems you didn't know you had. So that's always a situation, especially when I come in as a consultant. It's like, oh, we have this problem, and like, or did you know you had this problem? And they're like, no, we didn't know we had this problem. I covered one this week where the possibility is if they start using the Windows app for Dynamics, it will actually cut down on some of their bandwidth issues because of the native caching built into the product. And that's something they never ever thought about or actually even knew about. So a customizer is, in a lot of cases, an administrator. So they kind of go hand in hand. You can build on the administrator skills. It depends on your organization and the number of people you have to do any specific job. Um, but basically, you can start off as administrator, then you need to create entities or fields or whatever. You need to add JavaScript or business rules to facilitate something. You create Power Automate flows to actually do work, whatever it might be. You are the customizer level of that stuff. The next thing is the actual developer. So this is somebody who actually does development. So JavaScript, they do heavy JavaScript. They can create plugins. They can create other things, such maybe as Azure Logic Apps, which is a type of Power Automate system. But mainly, you understand the business processes, and you can map those into Dynamics 365, which those two things are not mutually exclusive, but they need to be really understood because, the old saying goes, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I have come into systems where that's all they had was hammers. And let me tell you, it's not a lot of fun to try to fix some of those things. And it wasn't really their fault. It was just the fact that that's just the way it worked out is, you've got a certain skill set and you apply that skill set and come to find out there are other ways to do it you just didn't know about. It happens all the time. So the final layer of the kind of the transition for a Dynamics 365 person, this kind of may apply to any product out there, is you know the product inside and out. You know what features are best given any given requirement. And as I've told people for years, the cool thing about Dynamics 365, Power Platform, et cetera, there's always more than one way to do things. It is your job as an architect to figure out which of the 5 ways to do this is actually going to solve the requirement in the least amount of time and money and effort. That's what your job is, okay? And again, yes, you can apply a hammer to everything, but sometimes you just need a pair of pliers, okay? So again, translating business requirements into functional requirements. I have a small job I'm working on right now, and I didn't get business requirements so much as suggestion requirements, where let's just say I had to do a lot of interpretation because it wasn't exactly clear what was supposed to be done. And I particularly don't like that kind of thing. I'd rather have it all spelled out where there's no guessing about what should be done, but sometimes this stuff happens. And the final thing here is you work with end users and developers to develop a solution that works for them. If you go back a month or so where we talked about my webinar on the art and science of model-driven app development, which I turned into that course, we talk a lot about this, where you got to involve the end users to develop a solution with you, so that you're not developing things that don't need to be developed, to be quite honest. So education. So if you know who Stephen Covey is, he was a motivational speaker several years ago. He passed, but his whole thing was sharpening the saw was his term. So basically, always keep sharp. Okay, so as we go back to the Einstein quote earlier, if you study every day, you'll get better at whatever it is you're doing. And that's what he was talking about here, is always build time in to learn new stuff or update yourself on new stuff, so that when Microsoft ships you the 385-page README for the new update, you don't panic and you can take it a little bit at a time. We'll talk about that later. This is another one I found a couple years ago when I was creating this. It was like, and it's so true. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So another thing to think about. So where do you learn this stuff? Well, we've got lots and lots of stuff that we can learn and lots of places to find it. In all honesty, we almost have too much. When I first started in Dynamics CRM back in 2005, there were just a handful of places. Most of what I learned is I just had to go and start doing it and figuring out what happened. And my thing that I did personally is, if it took me longer than 30 minutes to either find it, in other words, it was somewhere else, it was documented or kind of documented or whatever, but if it took me more than 30 minutes to find it or 30 minutes to figure out what it did and how it worked, I would actually write a blog post about it, as long as there was no strategic value to me or the customer, would be violating something. But anyway, that's how I started out. Okay. It was just a way for me to give back, because we were all in this together. There was not that many of us at the time, and especially not many people sharing information. So I just, as I learned stuff, I passed it on to everyone else, and that way we all grow. You know, the term is a rising tide raises all boats. That's 100% true. So these days we have YouTube. People are still writing books. We have courses. I have some on-demand courses. I don't do in person really much anymore. We have user groups to share stuff. We have virtual and live conferences for the next few months, probably just virtual. So lots and lots of places to learn. You just have to find the method that works best for you. And like what I do, like these webinars are in person, then I record them, I put them up on my YouTube channel, people get to see them, and then I post them out on my social media. And, you know, they're reminded, hey, go look at this when you have time. So all these things are out there. So just you have to take advantage of them. So the Dynamics 365 user group, which I think they've changed the name-ish, the Microsoft Communities, which is an aggregation of websites and stuff. George and the guys doing the CRM tip of the day is always some good stuff there. They have both the blog and the YouTube channel for some things. So those are all good. And again, this is just, you know, 3 things. There's hundreds of sites out there. So just, you know, look around. My stuff, I have webinars that I do like this one. I have a thing called Knowledge Bits that are basically was just a little email service. You pick a topic and it would just email you every day for X number of days with stuff. I have some learning plans. I had a learning plan for this course and I cannot figure out where I put it. It needed to be updated anyway. And then of course my YouTube channel is at youtube.com/XRMcoaches. So these are my personal things that can help you do stuff. And these are all free. The documentation has gotten much better in the past few years. They've really put a big focus on it. For one thing, everything got moved into docs.microsoft.com. This is the Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise help homepage. So you can find stuff starting there. So start there when in doubt. There's also other places within Microsoft to get training that is part of, it may be part of your subscription and may be free. There's again, third parties out there, like Pluralsight has courses, other people like that. So always look around, there should be something for you to consume. So how do you define your path forward? Well, you got to define a main goal. So that goal could be certification. Maybe it's a job requirement that you be certified. I've had jobs where I had to be certified in the products we work with. That's just the way the world works. Maybe I want to develop index product knowledge. Maybe I want to change careers or, change departments or whatever it might be. Or finally, maybe you just want to be the smartest kid on the block. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Also, these are not mutually exclusive. It could be any of these things you want to do. So just pick what your path is, set a goal, and then just go work toward that goal. So I kind of divide a product into kind of 3 categories. You have tasks that you do, and you have the base functionality that helps you do the task, and then the application itself. Now, this is an extremely high-level overview, of course, but this is kind of how things tend to work out in my mind. And, everything's going to be a little bit different to everyone else. So learning by function. So here is the sitemap from Sales Hub, Customer Service Hub, and then the Sales Administration Group on the Sales Hub. Do you know what all these things do? I don't know. Do you need to know what all these things do? That's another question. Okay. I personally don't like to learn things I'm never going to use again because I am old and I will forget. And I have forgotten more than a lot of people know because I just need it for something. And then 6 months later, if you ask me to do it again, I couldn't tell you how that worked. I'd have to go figure it out again. And that's been me through my whole career. So the way I learn stuff is by doing it. I can read all day. That gives me pointers and tips about how it should work. But again, no plan survives contact with reality. So as soon as you think you know something, go try it out. Does it work like that? And the product being the product and it's ever changing, so kind of back up for a little bit. So we're in the middle of the wave 1 release. It's going to be shipped sometime between now and end of May. They moved it back. If you guys didn't hear that, they moved it back to May because of all the issues we have going on worldwide. And I didn't want to put a rollout right in the middle of all the confusion. Okay, so they're not rolling out everything at once, if you didn't know that. So that 300-something page release notes is what their plan is. Okay, So like one of the things they added is they're moving the advanced find stuff to a filter functionality. My friend Rui over in Ajik in India wrote an article about it today or yesterday. Well, they have it, I don't. And we're still on wave one because the way Microsoft rolls out functionality to the different geographies is one at a time or a couple at a time. So I checked right before this webinar. I do not have that new filtering capability that she mentions. So, I've got to wait for that to pop up. But the reason I'm bringing this up is things change on a daily basis. I cannot tell you how many times I have known something works a way only to get in front of a group of people to show how that works, and it doesn't work that way anymore. Just because they changed it and I didn't get the memo. Or sometimes nobody else did either. So with the way that the rollout works is they roll out features over a period of 6 months. And so these things will be popping up a few at a time. They do release, here's when we're doing it. There's the doc site lists what's new and coming, and it tells you the month that it's going to hit, and sometimes the actual date it did hit. But you have to go and make sure that you read that stuff. So I've got a couple Microsoft slides in here just to kind of, give you even more discouragement. So here is the Microsoft Cloud. So all of the pieces that make it up, it's founded by the Power Platform at the bottom. You've got the Dynamics platform, LinkedIn in the middle. This includes both the customer engagement and then, which we're not calling anymore, and then the finance and operations. So this is the whole thing. So when you think about going back to functionality, where do I start? Well, where would you start? So we'll talk about that in a minute. To make things even more fun, let's take a look at what happens when Microsoft starts adding new functionality, such as artificial intelligence. One day, I would like to be smart enough to figure out how they do all that stuff inside PowerPoint, but that's not today. So again, lots of moving parts in here. So when you think you don't have anything to learn, all you got to do is look at one or two of these slides and figure out, yes, I do. Okay. If you look at this picture here and try to figure out how many products are they actually talking about in here. Is it all of them? Probably. But this is how complicated it has gotten, and why I said at the beginning that you need to, spend 15 minutes or more a day learning stuff, because it's constantly changing. When I was doing sales at Microsoft, the biggest thing is like, well, what do you have to offer? I'm like, well, don't take this the wrong way. We're Microsoft, we're one checkbox away from integration, and that's just the way it is. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. The good thing is we're a checkbox away from integration. The bad thing is now somebody's got to figure out what the integration actually does. Okay, so keep that in mind. But again, the reason I'm pointing these things out to you is so you can actually see all the possibilities that you have available to you to expand your career, to expand your knowledge level, and hopefully expand your pocketbook. Now, I showed you all those. And if you don't know what this is a bunch of carp with a gold carp in the middle. And they're actually probably feeding. Somebody's throwing a bunch of food. But this is what it's like to be a Dynamics 365/Power Platform developer or person who works with these products on a daily basis. And if you don't feel like this, you're not doing it right. Okay? Because there is so much you cannot physically keep up with it. It boggles my mind where we are today versus where I was in 2005, 15 years ago. Okay, it's just absolutely amazing how far the entire platform and company have come. So one of the things that you can do when trying to figure out where do I start with this stuff is start with the certifications. Now, we're going to talk about certifications a whole bunch in a minute, but one of the things to think about is when Microsoft creates a certification, it's a multi-step process. But one of the steps of the process is they get experts together and they have what they call a taxonomy, which is a list of things. And then they go through that list and they identify what they think is important. And then that's what becomes a certification after a period of time. Okay. And sometimes that's the actual course, sometimes it's a certification test of the exam itself, etc. But the thing about this is they have taken the time and trouble to identify what is important for them to tell you what they want you to know. You can use that as a guideline. So this is from, I think the customization. Yeah, this is probably a customization test, one of them. And all this is okay, I need you to know how to configure, how to implement solutions, business rules, processes, things like that. I've got this divided up. So part of the way I do work is, okay, I'm going to do bullet 1 today, and I'll do bullet 2 tomorrow, or maybe bullet 1 is this week, whatever it might be, depends on the size of the bullet. Okay, so this is just a guide. And what I did at one point, what I was giving away at one point, was I had taken all of that stuff, put it into a Word document like this, where you could just kind of go and check it off. So that's all I did there. Okay, and I just call that a learning plan. Okay, so before you get all freaked out, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Okay, Dynamics and Power Platform is exactly the same thing. There's a lot to learn. Don't be overwhelmed by it, because if you get overwhelmed at the beginning, you're always going to be overwhelmed, and it's a constant state. So again, it's gotten much more complex and comprehensive in the past few years, but there's nothing that we can nothing we can do besides go forward. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So a couple tips and tricks here related to everything. So again, have a goal in mind, have a list of things you want to do. Okay, where do I want to go? How do I want to get there? And then have some way of tracking that progress. And the reason you do that is because it helps you maintain progress, so that you know what you're doing and where you've been. Biggest thing is start with what you know. Okay, do I already know how sales works? Well, do I really know how sales works? Do I know everything about? Do I know what happens every single button when I push it? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then go push that button. Okay, be consistent. So again, 15 minutes a day, block it out, preferably at the beginning of the day, while you're fresh and people don't come and talk to you. If you can, doesn't always work that way, but if you can. The exams are a great way to test your knowledge. I mentioned earlier about going to using the certification or the exam content as a guide. One of the side effects of becoming certified is you learn the product. Okay, when I was at Microsoft recently, all of my coworkers were, except for one, were actually from Oracle, so they came in not knowing the product at all. And so we pretty much made everybody get certified because they needed to know the product in an in-depth manner in order to demonstrate it. And so it's a really good way. Now, is it worth it to get certified just to be certified? That's up to you. I can't give you that answer. Okay, but it's a great way to prep your knowledge on the product to find out what it does. And again, it's the, sometimes the 10, maybe 5,000 foot view, but it's not going to get you down at the bottom level until you actually start doing stuff. So the way that I do learning is I know stuff, I comprehend what I know, I understand what I know, and then I can teach what I know. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So believe it or not, there is a big difference between comprehending and understanding in my mind. Okay. I kind of comprehend what that topic does, or I actually understand how to do it. That is the difference. Okay. So let's talk about exams and stuff. Sorry, question here. Okay, here's the current exam list. 2 of them are currently in beta, and these are the new architect exams. So this lists both the, I don't even know what they're calling it these days. The marketing folks are just driving me crazy. The customer engagement, it's not right. But basically finance and operations and then CRM. Okay, so this is all the tests we have now. We used to have these certifications, so you end up with an MCSA and then an MCSE at the end. Okay, those are going away. They're being retired, I think, in September of 21. I think is what I saw. Sometime next year, next calendar year, they're going to be retired. They're being replaced by 2 others. So on the left-hand side, you have individual exams. Okay, so Certified Power Apps, Dynamics 365 Developer, Associate, Sales Functional Consultant, Marketing Functional Consultant, Customer Service, and Field Service. Each one of these will give you the little uh, badge, as they're calling it, that has the name and then associate. You take one of, in this case, you take one of these tests, exams, and you take the architect exam, and that will make you an expert. Okay? So that's the new path going forward. If you're doing finance and operations, it is a little bit different. So we have 4 choices plus the architect to equal an expert. Okay? Now, let me stop here for a second. So, do you need to be certified? Maybe. And we'll talk about that in depth in a little bit, but just, think about it. If, again, it's a way to learn stuff. You don't have to do it unless it's a job requirement, but again, it is a way to force you to actually do something. Okay, that's what I look at it as. We'll cover that in just a minute. So now I'm going to show you part of my transcript. I don't want everybody to freak out because I'm kind of a weird testing nut, okay, because just the way I have done stuff. Here's the past 2 years of my certifications. Now there's a couple things here, and it all kind of boils down into how I do things. You will notice I do things in batches, okay? I have a mental process I call study mode. It activates my OCD at the very top power level. And all I do when I get into study mode is study. So do the job I take, but my after hours, my work hours, my before hours is studying, figuring out what they want. Getting practice tests is my favorite way of learning stuff. Going through the materials, clicking the buttons, making sure everything works. And I do that all at once. And the reason I do that is because, again, this is for me personally, it's a mental shift. So once I get into study mode, when I come out of study mode, I'm kind of exhausted, to be quite honest. But the way that I do it is I kind of study things together, because when you get into some of these certifications, like the 230 and 240 for customer service and field service, those two are siblings. They're tied together, and you can't take them apart. Customer service ends with field service in some organizations, whereas you couldn't start field service without a case being created at the very beginning. So you kind of, in my mind, have to study those together if you're going to take the field service test, because there are questions on both. Okay, so you kind of have to keep that in mind. But what you see here is just me. This is just the way that I've done things. Okay, so and I have another page I didn't bother showing you, but this is start off with CM40. Kind of show you a couple funny things here. This 876 CRM 2011 extending. You see, I took it in 2014. Well, what happened between 2011 and 2014? Well, a couple things happened. First off is I wrote about a third of that test. And at that time, now what happens, if you write part of the test, they automatically give you credit for the test, which is kind of, that makes sense, right? At the time, they didn't. I had such a traumatic time creating that test that I did not take another test for 3 years. And I'm not exaggerating. If you notice, I took the 2011 test on April 2nd and then the 2013 test on the 14th. Okay. And really the reason is because I took the test because I had to keep my MCT, my certified trainer credential up, because this is the course I taught at the time. And I had to have that. And then I'm like, well, I've already taken this one. Let me go see about taking the other one. And so I scheduled it for, 2 days later. I took it. It was not as hard as the one I was writing part of, which kind of freaked me out, to be quite honest. And then the others, like this was, I was at a Microsoft conference up in Seattle, and they had the testing center there. I could walk up, schedule a test, walk to the room and take it. And I did that. I took 6 tests in 3 days, 2 days. I passed 5. The 6th test I did not pass because it asked me questions like entitlements and things like that, SLAs. I had no customers who had ever used any of those features, and I had no idea what they were talking about. The way that I fixed that problem and later went back and took the test was I did a webinar to show everybody else how to do it. And that goes back to my final thing of one of the roles there is teaching. Nothing will learn you better than teaching it to somebody else, either in a one-on-one or a group scenario. Okay. So I cannot tell you the number of times I've actually had to learn something to teach somebody else. And that's just what happened. Okay. So anyway, but like I said, the way I do stuff is I batch it up. And then like, again, this was the stuff here on February 8th and 9th. That was just circumstance, to be quite honest. I had just started at Microsoft. I'd been consulting for years. I worked at the product on a daily basis, and I just did everything. So it wasn't unheard of for me to do this. Like I said, the one test I didn't pass was in the one area where I didn't use it on a daily basis, and that's just what it was. Okay. So anyway, so just take a look at that. And anyway, so again, your mileage is going to vary. Some people are really good test takers. I'm just one of those. But when you start studying for stuff, you need to have a plan. So a plan needs to have a couple things: a goal and a time frame. So I'm going to take the test is bad. I'm going to take the test on June 1st at 10 a.m. That is a time frame. Now and you know what you do? You go schedule that test for that time. Okay. And you go and do that. So you apply yourself to pass that test on that way to that time frame. And then, you've set a deadline that you have to meet. So assemble your study resources. So that could be practice tests. It could be websites you need to do. It's a list of stuff you want to do. Some people like to have a study buddy, is what they call it. And that's just a person or persons, maybe a study group. And what you're doing is you meet once or twice a week or whatever. You take a topic, you explore the topic until everybody understands what it is, and then you go away, and then you come back the next week and do the same thing. That works for some people. I personally don't like that technique, but that it's not. And I'm not everybody, right? But the next one is very important. You've got to be committed to the process. Have to be. Okay. Yeah, you can just go take it if you want to, whatever. That's what they mentioned in the last thing there. But you need to be committed to the process. If you're just going to, waste your time, again, it's just going to go in one ear and right out the other. Okay. The last thing is, when in doubt, just go take the test. So in most cases, and it kind of comes and goes, but Microsoft will give you a free test if you don't pass. They call it double take for a while, and it kind of varies back and forth. But when in doubt, just go take it. Okay. Because if nothing else fails, you might actually pass. Okay. That's something a lot of people, I try to get my coworkers at Microsoft, they just wouldn't do it. I'm like, just go take the test. Doesn't cost us anything. Cost a couple hours of time. Go do it. And the goal of that is, oh, now I know what's on the test. Now I'm not sure what your memory is. You can't take notes or anything like that out with you or whatever. But if you've got a good memory, you've got a really good idea of what's on the what questions are being asked, how they're being asked, and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. So when you're actually doing stuff, remember it's just a test. Do you know what happens when you fail a certification test? Anybody? Might want to put that in the chat. Anybody? Anybody know what happens when you fail a certification test? Christina says nothing. Cheryl, nothing, 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 nothing. Yeah, there you go. No, that's not true. Microsoft will call your parents and tell them you failed the test. That's what will happen behind the scenes. You don't know that, but there is an entire call center of people who do nothing but call parents and tell them their child failed a test. It's horrible. Okay. But again, in most cases, the in many cases, not most, but they will you get a chance to actually retake the test for free. Okay, so if you fail it, you fail it. Hopefully, you learn what did I mess up. With the exception of the beta exams, most of them will give you a graph of where you did and how you did. Okay, so they'll as with the study materials, they will give the topics, the percentage, and then that's what they base it on. They give you that report whenever you get done. Okay, except again with the exception of the beta tests, which are not scored in the same method. Okay, so if you fail, you fail. Hopefully you learn something. You know, I have been in the middle of a test. I can remember what it was one time. I'm like, I am the stupidest person to be breathing air right now in this room. And I scored 96%. If I had walked out right there, I would never walk back in. I was like, I knew I was failing the test. Didn't think, knew it. Like this, I'm just going to get this over with. I'm wasting my time. I don't know anything. I feel like an idiot. And I had 96%. I came walking out almost in tears. And she goes, "So how'd it go?" I'm like, oh, it didn't. She looks at it and she looks at me like this really quizzical look on her face and hands it to me. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So it, no matter how you feel when you're taking it, the end result is what matters. So, just be kind to yourself. The third bullet is something that I have done over and over again is overstudy. How do you know you're overstudying? When you start to question your judgment or your knowledge on a topic. Okay. It's very easy to do, especially if you've been studying for a long time. And so, just keep that in mind. That's the biggest danger of studying for a long time is you begin to question if you know something or not, because it's so wrapped up in your brain that it basically starts I'm not sure how the term would be. The knowledge starts degrading, and it's just because you're using it too much. I know it sounds really stupid, but that's really what I feel it is. And again, there are lots of free or low cost learning aids out there. You can buy a sample test or sample tests like Quiz that has stuff out there that may or may not be correct and whatever, but use those as kind of a guide to kind of get an idea of what's going on the test. So testing tips. Now, I will tell you, this is easier said than done for most people. Okay, have a positive attitude. Know that you're there to pass the test, not to take the test. Remain calm, manage your anticipation, But I can tell you, I have to wipe my hands on my pants every time I go in there to get the sweat off of them. Okay, and that's me, taking 15 tests in the past 3 years. Okay, just doesn't happen. Fourth bullet, I cannot emphasize this enough. Do not change your answers. Okay, go look it up if you don't believe me, but I think there's statistics that says that changing your answers is a bad thing. I never change my answers unless I get a question that really makes me rethink that if I can go back. Sometimes you can't go back. Okay, but a lot of people will go and they'll go back through all of their answers and change things. That's really a bad idea. Okay, the last thing is something to help the testing things. So back in, God, which one was it, 2011? Which one was that? Yes, I think it was a 2011 applications test. It was so badly written that me and at least 4 of my friends failed the test. And these are people, myself included, who work with it on a daily basis. 3 of us were MCTs on the product. They wrote the test in so bad a manner, they literally had to rewrite it, because the questions, you couldn't understand what they wanted. I mean, you knew the answer to the question, but which one of these very obtuse answers is it? Like, you couldn't tell. And they got such bad reaction and feedback that they actually rewrote it and re-released it. Okay, so there's a check mark on every question that lets you go back and review it. Well, part of that review is to provide feedback. So if you have time and you do not mind, if a question in your mind is very badly worded or confusing, let them know, and they will actually take that advice to heart. Again, totally optional, but if you would like to, you can. Okay, deliberate practice. I'm not sure how many people know the martial artist Bruce Lee, but this is his quote, which I totally appreciate. But this is just about commitment and deliberate practice. And as Nike says, just do it. So if you don't have a test environment, you can sign up for a trial environment. Now, I've gotten reports lately that due to all the people doing stuff from home, Microsoft's demo system has been a bit overwhelmed with people signing up for trials and stuff. So right now it may be a thing. It's hard to do, but you could try. Otherwise, if you have a sandbox environment at your company, or if you have on premises, if you could spin up a virtual machine or something to play with, that would work as well. But there are ways around everything. So I put this in here because I get asked questions all the time. Okay. And I get asked questions to answers that the way I find the answer to the question is I go out to Google and I type the question and I get the answer and I email it back to them. Okay. Don't be that person. You're wasting people's time. Okay. So after you have found no other way to fix this problem or find the answer to the problem and you've done all the searching you can, then you can ask somebody else. Okay. That's just the rule I use. And you don't have to do it that way, but people will respect you better if they're giving you the answer that you could have found in 2 minutes. Okay. Ask nicely, and again, don't be offended if people don't return your query. I mean, they're busy. Okay. And helping you for free for people who work from the cells is not really a high priority. You've got to remember that. Okay. And, don't ask them to do something complicated. I got asked one time, and I am not kidding when I tell you this story. I got asked by a college kid to more or less do his project for him on Friday night, and it was due on Monday morning. And I'm like, I was baffled. I'm like, are you not going to do this? And then like it's like he waited until the very end and then wanted me to tell him how to do it. And it was like a day's worth of work. Okay. That actually happened to me. So again, don't ask for stuff like that. Okay. So a couple of other things. I don't think I put on the slide here. If you don't know how a feature works, then go and do it. Like for instance, let me see if I can jump over here. Actually, you know what? Hang on one second. I gotta reshare my screen. Okay. If you don't know how a thing works, then go and do that thing. Okay. So if I go to app settings here and I look at forecast configuration, how many people know what the new forecasting tool does? Anybody? Nope. I don't either. Do you know how I'm going to find out about that? That's a button right there. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to click that button and then I'm going to figure out what it wants me to do. Oh, it wants a name. Oh, I can do that. And then it wants me to find a view. I can do that. And then it wants me to tell what is the top of the hierarchy. I have no idea. What are you talking about? Oh, that's a user. Okay, I can do that. Then I got some more stuff. And then at some point I click the next button. Okay. Don't be the person who will ask a question before they've clicked the button to figure out what it actually does. Okay. Here's another one, PDF generation. Does anybody know what this is? This is new. Nobody? So this is shipping. So basically what this is the ability to automatically convert a Word or a document template into a PDF from the menu. So you literally turn it on, hit apply, go back to one of my accounts. And basically, I can create that and I can also do it somewhere else. But the idea here is I can create this and then here it actually, I don't think it did it right. So here it will generate it, but there's another one. Where's the document one at? Yeah, I think I got to refresh the browser. But anyway, so what happens is that one actually will create a PDF off the template itself. Yeah, come on, you can do it. I think I did it right. Where's my button at? Button. Nothing better than a live demo. Yep. Okay, button's missing. I should have a button here. It says generate document or something like that. So anyway, but again, I don't know what this does. Okay, so don't be afraid to just push buttons and find out. So again, like with this, with the forecasting, this is the new stuff that's coming, and all you need to do is just figure it out. Okay, so just push buttons. Okay. So does anybody have any questions or comments? Anything we didn't cover? Nope. Nothing else? Anybody? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Oh, Bruce. Okay. Well, we will talk to you later. I'll have this up on the YouTube channel here sometime today. Thanks everybody. Have a good time.